Hello, and welcome to Release Readiness Live for Developers. My name is Stefan Chandler Garcia, and I'm a developer advocate here at Salesforce, and I'm going to be your MC for this session. Today, I'm accompanied by an amazing group of product managers that will talk to you about this release's new features and answer all of your questions. During this session, we will make some forward-looking announcements. And so remember, please make all of your purchasing decisions based off of the features that are currently generally available. So this session will be interactive, and we are here to help you. Do you have any questions about this release for us? Make sure to ask us on Twitter, and our fleet of experts will be happy to answer. Just use the hashtag Salesforce Live, and we'll get them ready to answer at the end of the session. Now, during today's session, we're going to be covering a lot of great content. We will be learning all about the enhancements to external services, getting some major new Lightning Web Component updates, checking out what's new in tooling, and really getting to know subscription management. So that's all from me for now. Let's hand things off to Andrea Guzman to get us started.
Thanks, Stefan. Hi, everyone. My name is Andrea Guzman. I'm the product manager for external services, and I'm here to talk to you about the exciting updates coming for external services in this release. Let's take a look. 4 summers ago, back in 2018, we made external services generally available on the Salesforce platform. This summer, we're shipping 2 highly requested improvements to the product. External services allows you to harness open API standards to create declarative building blocks without writing custom code. We use open API specifications to accelerate the creation of actions that invoke functionality in other systems from within Salesforce, providing a useful tool to help you automate workflows and build process integrations. Here is a brief overview of the goodness we are delivering in Summer 22. First, we are GAing the ability to access external services registered actions directly from Apex in a type-safe way. Previously, actions created through external services have been exposed exclusively for invocation through Flow or Einstein bots. So this is something developers will be excited to use. In addition, we've relaxed some of the considerations that needed to be taken into account when making schema updates to your existing external services registrations. That is, if a registration is in use by Flow, you now update it with a new one, compatible API specification version. In the past, you couldn't update a registered schema that was in use by Flow. We've also addressed some underlying platform limitations that previously resulted in errors being thrown when attempting to register schemas that featured lengthy operation and object developer names. This enables you to register even more APIs with less friction. Now, let's take a look at a demo highlighting how developers can call external services registered actions directly from Apex. Today, I'm going to register a bank service API as an external service in Salesforce. This API is described with an OpenAPI 3 specification. Here, we have all the endpoints. Let's take a look at the post method. Here is the add account action, along with its respective parameters, account name and account type. And this is how the responses look. Now, let's take a look at the get method. Here is the get account action we will be using, and the parameter account name. This is how the responses look. One last thing to note is the account details. You'll notice these fields will be shown in just a minute, so I just wanted to highlight them beforehand. Here we have the account ID, account name, account type, and the available balance of the account. Now, let's head over to our Salesforce org and launch the developer console. In the past, Apex developers would need to work with the Apex HTTP class in order to make a call out to an API. So they would need to construct the endpoint manually. In this scenario, we're going to make a call out to the add account endpoint in order to create a checking account for Kevin. This is a named credential. This is the account name input parameter. Here is the account type input parameter. We continue to set up the HTTP request. Here, we make the callout and get the response. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and execute this and see what response we receive from the callout. And I'm going to select the debug log checkbox so we can view the details we care about. We can see that the response returns ID 103, name Kevin Wong, type of account, which is checking, and the available balance, which is 0. Now, let's go back to the code. Once you get the response, you need to manually parse it and get the response property figured out, which is the available balance. We can see that this approach to make API callouts is not straightforward, since developers need to make conversions from Apex data structures to REST data structures. But now, in Summer 22, you can invoke external services registered actions in Apex without having to write boilerplate code. We've taken care of those painful steps for you. To use this new functionality, we first need to create a named credential. So let's head back to our Salesforce org. This is a named credential I previously created. Next, we need to register the bank service schema in external services. Here, you can see the actions that were generated, as well as the input and output parameters. In our next example, we'll be using the get account action. Now, let's take a look at the Apex code. This time, we are calling the get account action to see if we can successfully get the information from the checking account we just created for Kevin. First, we create the bank service object. Then, we create the request object and set the request. We then call the get account action, and it returns the response. We are interested in the response properties ID and available balance. Let's execute it and open up the debug log to confirm it's successful. To make it easier again, we can select the debug only to view the relevant details. We can see it's a 200 response, and here is the ID 103. And the available balance is 0. Let's go back to the Apex code one last time. The classes getAccount method, the getAccount request, and getAccount response are automatically created when you register the external service. So you don't need to worry about the type conversions in Apex and just conveniently use it for the callout. So that's a brief example of how developers can now access external services registered actions directly from Apex to tap into reusable functionality when writing Apex code to build integrations. Make sure to review the release notes and updated help documentation for all the specifics. And please keep the feedback coming on the external services Trailblazer community. So that's all I've got. Now I'll turn it over to Greg for your next update.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, my name is Greg Whitworth, Senior Director of Product for LWC and LWR. I'm excited to talk to you about some new features in LWC and base components. Let's take a look. One of the core innovations that our team has been working on over the last few years is Light DOM. But before we get into that, I have to quickly talk about the Shadow DOM. The Shadow DOM enables you to encapsulate the logic inside of your components so that it doesn't bleed out into the rest of the application. It has many great benefits like preventing DOM traversal and allowing you to slot elements into your components. Now let's get back to Light DOM. As you'd guess, it brings the capability for your component to be rendered in the Light DOM instead of being rendered in the shadow tree. There are a couple of great benefits with this approach. The Shadow DOM makes it hard for people to customize and theme those components. So Light DOM components make it easier because the styles that you inject at the page level now leak into your component. This enables you to theme your components in a pixel-perfect fashion. Another benefit of using Light DOM is to integrate with third-party scripts. Most of the third-party libraries and tools do not deal well with Shadow DOM, so let's face it. Light DOM components are a way to enable those scripts to hook into these components easily. For example, it unlocks application tools such as Google Tag Manager and Evergage. Here we have a side-by-side view of the same component. one which is rendered in the shadow DOM and the other that is rendered in the light DOM. One key difference here is that you may notice is that there is no shadow tree and there's no shadow root. Keep in mind that this component is rendered in the same DOM tree, so the content of the component is now rendered as children elements of the X parents. Also, the slot element is highlighted in a different fashion because in the light DOM, the slot doesn't have the same meaning. It is very easy to get started using light DOM as you can enable it on a per component basis. This is great because you don't have to enable it for the entire application in order to use it. You have to do two things to enable light DOM. First, you have to set a static class property called render mode and set it to light on your component, and do a similar thing on your template. Now the component will render in the light DOM instead of the shadow DOM. A few notable differences that I think are worth calling out is that, as discussed previously, when you are rendering in the light DOM, there is no shadow tree nor shadow roots, so the way that you access your content is different. Up until now, if you wanted to access the elements that are rendered by your component, you do this with a template query selector. In the case of light DOM component, you access the content that you render via this.querySelector, because there is no template and there is no shadow tree. Also, styles aren't scoped. All the styles that are set at the page level now leak into your component. All the styles that your component brings into the page now link out to the rest of the page. Events likewise aren't retargeted, and finally, the slot elements for light DOM components aren't rendered, meaning that it's something that you have to be aware of. It's not just a transparent switch whenever you turn on light DOM components and when you toggle on to shadow. You might be wondering now, up until now Salesforce has told us, you should be using shadow DOM, so why do I need light DOM? The thing is that there are trade-offs and advantages to whether picking shadow DOM or light DOM. With shadow DOM, components have stronger encapsulation and they encourage portability, at the expense of limiting the capability of styling your component or making them available to integrate with third-party tools or scripts. On the other hand, light DOM, as noted before, enables integration with third-party scripts and also traditional styling and theming. But that comes at the expense of weak encapsulation, meaning that now you are exposing the internals of the component to the world. So if some third-party tools or scripts are hooking into your component, and if you were to change the content, you may introduce a breaking change. Light DOM is available today in LWC open source and is going GA with the Summer 22 release. So now let's check out a demo. We are going to start out here in an Experience Cloud site. I have a custom LWC that I've created to let customers subscribe to a newsletter. I would like to check whether or not the component is available inside of the browser. We can test this using developer tools. We will start out by trying to reach into the page and see if we can select the custom component. We can use document.querySelector, paste in the name of the element, and then query to see if we have access. When we press return, you will see that the component was not found and returns null. As I mentioned earlier, this is by design. However, sometimes you will want to let third parties access your components. That is exactly why we created light DOM. So how can we enable it? Let's go over to VS Code and find out. We will start out on our component's HTML file in the template. You can set the render mode light. If you do not have this set, then everything in the component will be rendered in a shadow DOM. Next, we have to go over to our component's JavaScript file and declare a static property in the constructor that sets the render mode to light. Once this is completed, you can deploy your changes. It is that simple. So let's go back into the browser and check the results. We will refresh the page. Once again, let's open the developer tools and try and query the element. And there you go. We now have access to the custom component from our developer tools. This means that the light DOM is running and our libraries can access the element. This is a huge win for developers and will unlock the innovation for public-facing Lightning Web Components. Let's take a look at one more feature available this release. You might remember last year when Chrome 96 was released, the window.alert, confirm, and prompt APIs no longer worked. This was very impactful to Salesforce customers. We had over 400 cases created in a week and over 1,000 confirmations on the known issue. Because of this, we got in touch with the Chromium team, which powers Chrome and Edge, WebKit, which powers Safari, and Mozilla, which powers Firefox, and they reverted it within days. A huge thank you to Google, Apple, Microsoft, and Mozilla for their support on rolling out the fixes so quickly. Additionally, we wanted to ensure that our customers are prepared for when this change does ultimately ship in browsers, so we are introducing a new alert, confirm, and prompt-based components. These will work even in third-party contexts, so we highly recommend that if you are using window.alert, confirm, or prompt, that you migrate your code when these ship in the summer 22 release. Let's take a quick look at how these components work using the alert as an example. Here we're using the native alert API, which will not work in certain scenarios in the future when the browsers ship their breaking changes. If we adjust this to lightningalert.open, this will leverage the new alert component and will work as expected. Let's take a look at these components in the browser. First, let's open up the alert modal. You can see that it will open our replacement for the standard alert component that will require you to confirm the message. Next, let's open the confirm modal. This will require you to confirm a message that is displayed. Notice that it uses the Lightning design system, which is an added bonus. Lastly, let's open the prompt modal. This one will require you to supply an input, which you can use in response in your LWC. That's it for me. Now I'll hand it off to Ananya for more.
Thanks, Greg. Hi, everyone. My name is Ananya Cha, and I'm the product manager for the Salesforce extensions, currently available to you in VS Code and soon to come in Code Builder. I'm stoked to show y'all what's been going on in the world of developer tooling in the IDE. Let's get started. To start with, what are our Salesforce developer tools? For customers who are looking to build the apps they need, fast developer productivity is critical. A few years ago, we introduced a revolutionary set of products under the brand Salesforce DX that redefined what a business could expect in terms of developer tooling from a CRM platform. We own a lot more under the hood, but these are our flagship products. This is defined by the powerful Salesforce extensions for VS Code, the world's most powerful IDE, that streamlines it for Salesforce work. We also enable seamless, powerful control over the entire application lifecycle with an open source CLI, command line interface, that enables you to build across environments and do so in a scriptable way. And coming soon is Code Builder. Code Builder is a modern, web-based development environment optimized for Salesforce. That's right. Code Builder will bring our extensions plus the CLI right in your browser. Now let's check out what's new in our extensions. Currently, you can access these features by installing our extensions on VS Code. Once Code Builder arrives, you can also access all these features from there. 2 ways to get to the same awesome tooling. Yay! Over the past year, we've been focused on features that can save you time. This includes features like LWC IntelliSense, Anonymous Apex Autocomplete and tooling, easy debugging, and our manifest builder. Let's take a look at these different features. We heard from our users that there are many instances where you may start working on a component and later on realize that it needs to be renamed to better reflect its purpose. Since each Lightning Web component has multiple files under its parent folder, to rename the component, you would need to click on the default VS Code rename command for each file. As you can imagine, this was tedious and time-consuming. With the new rename functionality, you can rename your entire folder and its files with one click. We also heard from many of you that the ability to write short blurbs of Anonymous Apex and test it without needing to deploy to the org was a huge time saver. But the next step in the story is actually writing the Anonymous Apex. Without autocomplete support, the task becomes a lot more daunting. So fear not, our team has been hard at work adding autocomplete support to your Anonymous Apex files. So now you should see helpful autocomplete suggestions all across the Apex in your project. Once you've finished writing your Anonymous Apex, we've also been working on making it easier for you to execute. You can now execute your Apex by clicking on the Execute Anonymous Apex code lens that'll appear at the top of your .apex file. And soon, we'll be introducing our Easy Debug code lens to this file as well. So you'll be able to execute your Anonymous Apex and launch into the replay debugger all at once with one click. Speaking of easy debugging, what's new over there? Launching the replay debugger used to involve quite a few steps. It required users to turn on trace flags, execute their Anonymous Apex or run their tests to generate the debug logs, fetch the debug logs, and then you could launch the replay debugger with your log file. Well, now you can step directly into the replay debugger from your anonymous Apex file or Apex test file. Don't worry, we'll see the magic of easy debugging in our demo. Okay, and now let's jump right over to the manifest builder. Many of us are looking for an easy way to move chunks of metadata over to our org while developing. Now, usually, this is done through a manifest file, or your package XML. This package XML lists out specific metadata components or types so you can deploy chunks of metadata at a time. At the same time, not many of us are looking to dive into the details of that manifest file when we're going to deploy. Introducing the manifest builder. Now you can generate a manifest file by just selecting the specific files you'd like to deploy from right there in the Explorer view. So let's begin the demo. We'll start off with our latest improvements in the LWC world. So here I am, currently inside of VS Code, my IDE. I have my Salesforce extensions fully installed and activated, which you can see from the marketplace right here. And I've also opened up one of my favorite projects, eBikes LWC, as I'm sure many of you have seen before. And lastly, I verified that I'm logged into my org of choice by checking out the org picker on our bottom status bar panel. Perfect. Now that I'm all set up and ready for my Salesforce development, let's demo our new LWC rename command. To start with, let's create a Lightning Web Component. I can do this by opening up our command palette with Command-Shift-P, and then searching for sfdx create Lightning Web Component. So then I can name my component and jump right into the file. Like I mentioned earlier, since each Lightning Web Component has multiple files under its parent folder, to rename the component, you would need to click on the default VS Code rename command for each file. As you can imagine, this is tedious and time-consuming. With the new rename functionality, you can rename your entire folder and its files with one click. Right-click on the folder or any of its associated files and click on sfdx rename component. And voila! All your files have been renamed automatically. It's important to note that right now, this command does not update references to your component across files, so those will still need to be updated and redeployed to your org. We've included a warning in the bottom corner letting you know about this step as well. This feature is being worked on iteratively, so our team will also be introducing this ability to automatically rename all references across files soon as well. And there are many other exciting new features across the LWC experience that I won't be able to get to in the demo today. But be sure to check out the new IntelliSense, LWC Jest test configurations, and autocomplete support for iterator syntaxes. Okay, so now let's jump into our second demo around enhanced support for anonymous Apex files. So as you can see here, the .apex extension tells the editor that it's an anonymous Apex file. And now we'll see how we can now get autocomplete support while typing in our file here. So if I want to reference a controller that I have defined in one of my other classes, I can start typing here and automatically see a list of all possible suggestions. And then I can also see a list of possible methods or attributes I can choose from within that controller. Now, the other new update is that at the top of the file, you get this Execute Anonymous Apex code lens. So you don't need to open up the command palette to execute your anonymous Apex and see the output. If we click this here, we can see that all of our anonymous Apex has just been executed, and we can see the output from the generated debug log in the output panel below. All of this happens lightning quick because it's directly calling the API behind the scenes without ever deploying to your org. Don't we love the magic of anonymous Apex? Now, coming soon is the ability to easily debug your anonymous Apex from a code lens right here in the file as well. For now, you can still access our new Easy Debug functionality via the command palette and right-click command. So let's say you've finished executing your anonymous Apex, but now you want to actually step through these various methods we've referenced. How do we do that? Well, that's where the replay debugger comes in. Now, all of that happens for you behind the scenes with the SFDX launch replay debugger with current file command, available to you in the command palette or code lens. And look at that, we even stopped at the breakpoint we set over in our controller. And now let's move into our final demo for today, the manifest builder. As I mentioned before, with this feature, you can select a set of components and generate a manifest file without a single manual edit. Let's see it in action. First, select the specific files you'd like to add to your package XML from right in the File Explorer. After selecting the files you'd like to add, right-click on one of the files or the folder from the Explorer view and select SFDX Generate Manifest File. You then get the option to name your manifest file and save it to your local manifest directory for reuse. Otherwise, if you'd just like to keep this manifest file around temporarily, maybe you're looking at combining a few different files, you can hit Escape and generate an untitled temporary file. For now, let's name the file so we can use it in the future. Awesome! And now we have the file saved to our manifest folder right here. Now we can go ahead and deploy all the components listed in that manifest file by right-clicking and hitting SFDX Deploy Source in Manifest to Org. Okay, and that concludes our demo today. I hope you enjoyed our whirlwind tour of the new LWC rename feature, Anonymous Apex Support, Easy Replay Debugger, and Manifest Builder. Now I'll turn it over to Darshan for more great features coming in the summer release.
Thanks, Ananya. Hello, everyone. I'm Darshan Gunasilan. I'm a senior manager, part of the Revenue Cloud Solutions Excellence team. Today, I'm really excited to talk about our new product we are releasing this summer, subscription management. It is the third product, part of our Revenue Cloud portfolio. Let's jump right into it. We are seeing more and more B2B interactions going digital, and these businesses have multiple revenue channels and models through which they sell the product. On the left, you can see all the channels that the customers interact with the business: e-commerce, direct sales, mobile app, channel sales, etc. This is not an exhaustive list, but a representative one. On the right, you can see all the different ways that the businesses want to sell the products to the customers. We have one-time, pay once and use the product forever, subscriptions, termed versus evergreen, usage and consumption, and finally milestone-based. Well, subscription management kind of sits in the middle and ties together all those different combinations. With subscription management, you would be able to manage the complete subscription journey, set up and price the products, create orders, invoices, payments, and refunds. You would also be able to cancel and renew the assets. With the power of APIs, you would be able to deploy this product across any channel, integrate it into an e-commerce app, mobile app, or a custom web application of your choice. Using Einstein AI, you can identify the invoices with the risk of late payments. Einstein AI reviews all the invoices, the customer profile, previous interactions, and comes up with a score for each invoice. Since this is all available on the platform, you would be able to deliver a unified customer experience with all the automation and the analytics built in. We have built this product API first, which is easy to deploy and gives you the flexibility to choose your own presentation layer. This product is API first, but not API only, meaning in the future releases, you would be able to do declarative setup, perform different business operations through Lightning UI, which you all love about Salesforce. To top it all off, subscription management is built entirely on core. We have used existing and new core objects to support subscription-related use cases. This will give you all the latest and greatest features of the platform right from the beginning of using the product. Subscription management has synchronous and asynchronous APIs to support different use cases. For example, creating an order is a synchronous operation, but generating billing schedules is an asynchronous one. Most of these APIs are available as invocable actions as well. You would be able to embed these actions in your custom flows. With these options, you have the ability to choose if you're using just APIs or just flows, or the combination of both APIs and flows to meet your business needs. How do you know if an asynchronous operation is completed? That's where platform events come into play. When an asynchronous operation is completed in subscription management, a respective platform event is posted with a success or error message. You can listen for these events through flows, triggers, or an external listener that is sitting in your organization server. We have a Postman collection with all the APIs for subscription management. We also use certain existing platform APIs that you all know, like Query, Composite, Update S objects, etc. There are different folders in this collection representing different objects that these APIs will act on. As I said before, most of these APIs are available as invocable actions as well. This is a buy now flow that ships with the product. A brief description: this flow takes you through the complete buy now scenario from creation of order, generating invoices, through collection of payment. It can also be invoked from an external system through a REST endpoint. We have an awesome doc portal which has plentiful information about the new objects, object models, APIs, invocable actions, and platform events that will be available for you when the product goes GA this June. With this, let's take a quick look at a demo of an application we have built on top of subscription management APIs and flows. What you see here is a web application built using Salesforce Experience Cloud site. This uses the combination of APIs and flows to help the user with the buying process. Homepage shows a list of all the products that's available for the customer to buy. There are multiple selling models for each product. Users have the ability to choose the preferred selling model. For example, one-time pricing of the Flash Array C product is $25,000, meaning the customer can pay once and use the product forever, or they can subscribe for $1,000 per month in the case of term subscription and $1,400 per month in the case of evergreen subscription. We have different pricing for different models. Each time the user changes the pricing model, we make a call to the pricing API that gives us the real-time pricing. This is a new API, part of the subscription management product. Let's go ahead and add a few products to the cart. Now we have 3 items in the cart summary, and we got price, quantity, and subtotal for each of these items. As a user, they have the option to select the payment method and buy now unassisted. But $17,400 is a little above the user's budget, and they would like to see if they can get a discount. From within the cart page, users have the ability to request for a discount. Sales rep is notified as soon as the user clicks the button. I'm logging into the org as a sales rep, and we can see there is a discount request that has come through. We can also see the grand total is $17,400, matching the user's cart. These are 3 products that the customer added. Since they are a regular customer, the sales rep wants to provide a 10% discount to all the products. Now, sales rep saves these items. Next, we can go through the usual process of approvals if needed and finally approve the request. Let's jump back to the cart page and refresh it. We can see 10% discount has been applied to all the products, and the cart total is $15,600, which is due today. User is happy with the pricing and they are ready to check out. They select the preferred cart and they hit buy now. This buy now button invokes the same flow we saw a few minutes earlier. Behind the scenes, buy now flow is creating the order, generating invoice, collecting payment, and finally applying the payment against the invoice. My orders page shows all the products that the user placed so far, and we can see the new order here. Moving to my invoices, we can see the invoice for the newly created order. If you look on the right, the invoice is paid in full. We were able to successfully collect the payment from the user's credit card and apply it against the invoice. Under my assets, we can see all the individual products that the user owns, and based on the product type, if it's hardware versus software, it is either pending shipment or provisioning. All those transactions were completed with a single click of a button, and that particular button is tied to the flow with embedded invocable actions. Fast forwarding to the account edge communications, we can take a look at all the assets that the user owns or subscribed to. Einstein has come up with the next best offer based on the current list of assets and suggests the customer might benefit with the premier support product. As a sales rep, from the account page, I can configure the quantity and discount for the product and hit next. This page gives me the summary of the offer: quantity, discount, and total price. For this small amount, we don't want to call the customer and start a long sales motion. Instead, we have the ability to Slack the customer since they are part of our Slack workspace. As a customer, I can see there is a promotional offer that is communicated to me. Accessing the channel, I can see the same details the sales rep had a few seconds ago. I'm happy with purchasing this product. To buy this product, I just have to click the Buy Now button. I don't have to leave Slack to any other channel to complete the purchase. I get the notification that the order has been created successfully and the payment was also successful. This button invokes the same buy now flow that the Experience Cloud site used. You don't have to replicate the functionality between multiple channels. Just create at one place and use it in any channel. That's all for today. I hope you would have got enough information about our new product. If you'd like to know more, you can access our public documentation portal or connect with us directly. Thank you so much. Now let me pass it back to Stefan to open things up for Q&A.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Q&A portion of this session. We are very excited to hear from you, and we're already seeing some fantastic questions coming in. We have this fabulous panel of product managers and leaders from Salesforce who are ready to answer your questions. So if you haven't already, please mention Salesforce Devs on Twitter with the hashtag Salesforce Live, and we will get those questions answered today. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, I'm not surprised that this is actually the first question that's come in today because I'm super excited about this feature. And our question is going to be for Ananya. So Ananya, how do we get autocomplete in Apex? Like, can we use this now?
That is a really good question. So the exciting thing is that autocomplete is already available in Apex. So you've had access to autocomplete across your Apex class files for a while now. And now you get access to autocomplete with your anonymous Apex files. And you can already access this if you go ahead and download the latest version of the Salesforce extensions for VS Code right now.
Cool, fantastic. So technically we should already have it available, shouldn't we?
Yeah, you should.
Cool. I think a lot of our developers would be very, very happy to hear that. Okay, so just a reminder, ask your questions with the hashtag Salesforce Live on Twitter so that we can get those answered. And we have a question that has come in for Greg. So the demo showed Light DOM in Experience Cloud, but does it also work in Lightning Experience?
It does. However, the way in which Light DOM works, your parent container would likewise have to be in Light DOM. And we don't currently have intention. So for example, for Sales or Service Cloud to actually have the parent components put into Light DOM. So the only things that can be in Light DOM would be the components that you own and complete control over, basically the children and descendants that you actually own. You could place them into Light DOM mode.
Cool. And then a follow-up question that I actually have for that is, so if we wanted to do something like use Google Analytics on Sales Cloud, I'm assuming with a custom component, we might be able to do that, but not with any of the standard ones. Can you explain that a little bit?
Yeah. Basically, you wouldn't be able to do kind of like a whole Sales Cloud, Google Analytics, like you would, with a normal site, similar to what you can get on Experience Cloud, because of the fact that we aren't going to make everything Light DOM for security reasons. So yeah, you can enable it for your own components, but not for everything all up.
Cool. Fantastic. And once again, make sure you're using the hashtag Salesforce Live. And we have a question here for Andrea. When will the registration options become available in external services?
Yeah, so you mean additional registration options,
yes,
right?
Yeah, that's correct.
All right, so we are working on enabling additional in-browser registration options. Some examples of what we're looking at doing is having an option to upload a spec from your local device, or potentially using a URL to point to a spec that might be published on a GitHub repository, for example. So those are things that we are currently evaluating, so make sure to stay tuned for enhancements in those future releases.
Brilliant. Hopefully that answers your question out there. We now have a question about subscription management for Darshan. We currently use Sales Cloud. How can we take advantage of subscription management?
That's a great question, Stefan. So subscription management is available on Sales Cloud or Service Cloud. You would be able to add that on. Please contact your AE on the pricing to get that added on once we go live this June.
Cool, fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, and it looks like we have another question for Andrea. So you mentioned using external services in Flow and Apex. Where else can we use them?
Yeah, so in addition to Flow or Apex, you can also use external services in bots and quick actions. We are also exploring opportunities to invoke external services from Lightning actions as well, but we don't have a set timeline for that, but it is something we are evaluating.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, and we have another question from Twitter, and this one is going to be for Ananya. Can we do iterative debug on VS Code? I'm not sure exactly what they mean by iterative there.
I'm not sure what they mean by iterative either over there. But within VS Code, you can already access your general debugging functionality. So if you do want to go in and debug any of your Apex test files or any of your LWC, you are able to do both of those using the debuggers that we have available. So for Apex, we have our Apex replay debugger that can be accessed.
Fantastic. And if you have any more clarification on what you mean by an iterative debugger, please post in the Salesforce Developers group in the Trailblazer community, where we can then follow up with your questions there. Okay, and we have an LWC question for Greg. Will print functionality ever be available in Lightning Web Components?
I'm presuming they'd mean just like the window.print command.
I think so, yeah.
Oh goodness, yeah. I don't know. I would put that on the. I don't currently have it on the roadmap, so yeah. Go to the idea exchange and put it in there and vote it up. It's a good request.
Yep. Please, if you have any ideas like that, always put them to the idea exchange because they do really help drive the roadmap at Salesforce and what features we can then get into the product quickly. Okay, and we have another subscription management question here. And so the question for Darsan is there an easy way to look at all of the APIs and to test them out?
Oh, definitely, Stefan. So we have a Postman collection with a list of all the APIs that will be available for the customers to start using from the day one. And it has all the request and the response formats inbuilt with a little bit of documentation across all the APIs. So yes. And they would be able to access it and start using the APIs from the get-go.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that answer there. We've got the questions coming in very quickly. Don't forget, ask them #Salesforce Live and we can get them asked. Okay, we have another tooling question here for Ananya. And the question is, it seems like Code Builder looks just like the Salesforce extensions for VS Code. Can you kind of explain the difference between the extensions there?
Yeah, so let me talk a little bit about what Code Builder is first. So Code Builder, for anyone who's not so familiar, is a modern web-based development environment that's optimized for Salesforce. So with Code Builder, you can actually deploy your full-featured IDE, which means you get access to the Salesforce extensions. And this would be why it looks exactly like VS Code on the web. So you get access to your full-featured IDE right there in the browser from your Salesforce org with the push of a button. So within Code Builder, you also get all of those key features that come to you with our Salesforce extensions. And then the other great thing is you also get access to the Salesforce CLI. So it will look and feel exactly like the Salesforce extensions for VS Code, and that is by design because it is the same magic powering it behind the scenes. With Code Builder, you'll just have the ability to access it right there from the web and with the extensions and the CLI all preloaded for you.
And almost immediately after that question was asked, someone asked how they can get into the Code Builder beta.
Oh, good question. So the exciting thing is that Code Builder beta is actually an open beta. So it's planned for the next upcoming few months. And since it is an open beta, that means that you will actually be able to participate by simply installing a managed package and then accepting those terms.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Question coming in for Greg. Is there a practical use case that you can give us for LightDOM?
Yeah, so the key scenario for LightDOM primarily is on the EC Communities Experience Cloud side, which is, hey, I want to use Google Analytics Tag Manager, Evergage, some third-party tool that takes a dependency on the DOM. At which point, like, again, they've actually made it so that their parent components that you get rendered within are LightDOM enabled. So you would then be able to use Google Analytics or any third-party tool for that. If you're on Lex, other scenarios would be if you wanted to have more styling and theming that is more akin to the light DOM approach versus the shadow DOM encapsulation. But going back to our earlier discussion, it only depends on the components that you actually own that are likewise light DOM enabled. So those are the two primary use cases.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. I think that sheds a little bit light on why you would want to use light DOM. Keep in mind, shadow DOM will always be the default. And so it's only exceptions that you're opening up into your components. So we have another question around external services for Andrea, and that is, are there any plans to increase some of the current usage limits and restrictions in external services?
Yeah, so we have made quite significant improvements in the last few releases, but we have seen some instances where users are maybe looking at moving all their integrations over to external services. So that's where we've seen they might encounter some of these issues. So the answer to that is basically we are continuing to reassess what these limits look like. And specifically, we're looking at the 25 registration per org restriction that we currently have and how we can increase that, as well as just the spec size limitation of 4 megabytes. So definitely stay tuned for these updates in the future.
Fantastic. I'm sure people will be very glad to hear that. Everyone loves limits increasing. Speaking of limit increasing, one thing that I do have to point out is make sure you check out the API updates in the release overview blog. And there was a great blog released today at the Salesforce Devs Twitter handle and on developer.salesforce.com that will go through the external services and API updates, because there are some bulk API limit increases. There's some additional changes to APIs. And so please make sure you go and check that out, because a lot of people will be very thankful for that. Okay, we have a live question, another one on subscription management for Darshan. How is subscription management different from the subscription functionality in Salesforce CPQ?
So with CPQ, you have a direct sales component where you start with the coding process and you take the coding process to the ordering process, right? So there's a direct sales or a sales rep involved. With subscription management, you would be able to access this across any channel, right? You can have any front-end layer, like you can say a mobile application. You would be able to connect to subscription management through the APIs, create an order, do all the subscription management activities like renewals and cancellations, do all those, and you would be able to bill the customer and collect the payment from the customer through APIs. So now you get a presentation layer that you can be creative about, and you would be able to access this across any channel there. So that's the major difference, right? That doesn't mean you wouldn't be able to use subscription management with CPQ. So subscription management is a standalone core product. It can stand alone without CPQ or billing packages in the system. But if you already have, or if you're considering to buy CPQ and billing and subscription management, it can all play well together, coexist together in the same org, and actually complement each other on different use cases that you have. So definitely, that's a really good consideration for the future.
Cool. No, great. That sheds quite a bit of light on that. Now I have a fun question for Greg that I think he's going to have something to comment on about, and that is, with Light DOM making life easier, or sorry, will Light DOM make life easier for third-party UI testing tools?
I guess, again, it goes back to the scenario in which you're trying to use these third-party tools, because everything would need to be enabled. But yes, theoretically, like the whole point of that feature is third-party tooling, third-party libraries in essence. However, that's where I will point to utam.dev because of the fact that utam is literally brought in to help actually improve the testing and tooling scenarios for Salesforce. So like really want to give a shout out to that team. But yes, it would make life easier again if everything is light DOM, on that in the scenario in which you're trying to do that testing with that third-party tooling.
Cool, that's great, and exactly what I thought you were going to say. So that's utam.dev.
Yep.
And you can go and learn more about some of the ways that we're innovating in the automated UI testing space here at Salesforce. Now, I actually have another Greg question. However, it's about tooling, but I think I'm going to have to pass this over to you. And so the question is, will you ever be able to debug Lightning Web Components via VS Code? And if so, how? And I'm going to defer to Greg to just talk about debugging in the browser for a second versus in your IDE.
but the question was about VS Code.
It is, yeah, very true. I'm assuming that I can assume the answer is probably not there.
Yeah, so you can't. I will actually say this is where like I actually think it would be valuable to kind of like say we've constantly talked about a very solid local host development, like Code Builder and all these other things. Like we've talked about bringing a synergy there as it relates to, hey, I'm a regular industry developer. I'm going to bring down localhost. I'm going to work with my components and figure out a way. It's just really complicated when you think app builder and experience builder. So right now, yeah, you do want to like open your dev tools primarily if you're especially in that composable state where there's all these interdependencies and message passing and all these other things. If you're in like just the leaf node scenario, you could, use VS Code or something of that nature. Ananya, I actually do want to pass it to you. Like, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this as well.
Yeah. Definitely. So right now in VS Code, you have the ability to run and debug your LWC jest tests. So if you navigate into one of your LWC test files, you will have you'll actually see these different code lines right above your individual test methods that will let you click run test or debug test, and then that will actually just launch our native debugger within VS Code itself. So if you want more information on this, it is all available to you on our developer.salesforce.com on the LWC testing tab. So this is specific for our LWC just tests within VS Code.
Fantastic teamwork there. That's exactly the answers that I was looking for that question. So I have a question around external services for Andrea, and that is, will there be schema validation functionality in external services in the future?
Yes, so we are also working on a schema validator functionality at the moment, and that's really just to provide users more detailed feedback on the errors that they encounter at the time of registering their schema. We are planning on GAing that functionality in either winter 23 or spring 23, so it's definitely coming soon.
Fantastic, thank you. And we have another question for Darshan here, and it is, can we use external tax and payment providers with subscription management?
Oh, that's a great question, Stefan. So yes, like we are working with multiple ISP partners in terms of tax and payments to get them connected with subscription management. So the customers would be able to make use of those different payment gateways and the tax partners from GA. And we are also working with multiple partners after GA to get them integrated with subscription management. So yeah, you'll have a lot of options for sure.
Fantastic, thank you. And we've got another one for Greg here. And the question is, can I override any SLDS CSS classes in a Lightning Web component without using styling hooks and instead using Light DOM?
So Light DOM is not supported on base components. So like you wouldn't be able to. Theoretically, yes, if they did support Light DOM, then you would be able to override them like any other CSS, increase the specificity of your selector and then override the styles. But right now, the supported methodology for the base components in SLDS is going to be styling hooks.
Fantastic, thank you.
I will jump just real quick. I will jump in. I do know that team is investigating in a cohesive theming story because it is a common request. But there are a lot of like backwards compatibility, commitments that we make and how to ensure that we don't break people. And that is one of the trade-offs you take with Light DOM is people can take dependency on the DOM as kind of an API surface, so breaking changes are hard to introduce.
Cool, fantastic, thank you. Don't forget, we've got a couple more minutes now, so get your last questions in on Twitter using hashtag Salesforce Live. And we have another tooling question for Ananya, and that is Code Builder in the cloud or is it installed and downloaded onto my PC?
Yeah, so Code Builder is in the cloud, which means that you can log on to your org and you will be able to launch it directly from your org. So you won't need to go ahead and download or install anything directly on your local computer.
And not to get anyone too excited, but I have had the pleasure of doing quite a bit of development with Code Builder, and it is fantastic. And it's very easy to use, and it's made my life much easier in a lot of situations to be able to just launch VS Code anywhere on any machine as long as I'm authenticated into the org. And so I'm sure everyone will be very excited to start getting their hands on that. And on that note, another tooling question, and that is, using the manifest builder, can I deploy component changes to any sandbox or only to the org that my VS Code is connected to?
Yeah, good question. So with the Salesforce extensions, you actually have the ability to connect to multiple orgs. So you are able to connect to multiple orgs, and to switch to a different org, you can use our org picker, and then you can go ahead and deploy your components or your manifest file across those various orgs, all from right there within the IDE. So all it is a matter of doing is making sure that you've authorized to all of the orgs that you'd like to deploy to previously from within your IDE.
Cool. Thank you very much. And then we have another question for Darshan here. And that question is, do we need to have CPQ or billing packages if we want to use subscription management?
Sure. Like you don't need CPQ or billing to use subscription management. As I was saying before, subscription management is a standalone product. It is built entirely on core, right? So you can enable that on a Sales Cloud or a Service Cloud license if you have the product. Now, again, repeating my answer again. So CPQ and billing can also be used with subscription management. Basically, all three can coexist in the same node, or you can use individual products separately, however the use cases fit for you.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Okay, we've got another one here for Greg. Are there any tools to check LWC application performance in mobile and web? I see that the mobile app gets slow when loading Lightning Web Component applications.
That's a good question. Like, I would almost always lean to in the mobile app. Are they talking about, this is hard to just via this Q&A, because part of me just wants to spin up, like, let's go like get a profiler, and like depending on which scenario they're talking about. I'm assuming that they're talking about in the Salesforce app with a web view loading LWCs. At which point, like, if that is what you're testing, then yeah, you would need access to the actual app to do the tracing on the web view. So I wouldn't say that we have a perfect solution, unfortunately, right now to test that. I would work with your component in isolation, and I'll pass the mic in a second to Nanya, but like, I would work with your component in isolation that maybe you theorize is the bottleneck, and then work with DevTools and do the profile tracing that way. But Nanya, I don't know if you have any other insights.
No, I don't have too much to add for this one.
Cool. That is a great question, though, for the Trailblazer community group. So if you go and find the Salesforce Developers Trailblazer community group and post that question, we can all kind of swarm on that and see if we can find the right solution for you there. Okay, and we have a question from Twitter for Ananya again, and actually a question that I have as well, because I did my first component renaming in VS Code the other day. And the question is, when will we see the renaming functionality come to change all of the impacted files as well as just the files inside of the directory?
That is a great question. So for those of you who don't know the nuance that we're talking about here, essentially right now, our rename functionality allows you to rename all of those files within your component folder, which is awesome. But we also have to be aware of all of the references that you may have to the controller that your component that you created. And so right now we are displaying a notification letting you know that the references do still need to be manually updated. Over the next few months, I would say, hopefully by the end of summer, our team will be working on creating that refactoring capability across files as well.
Cool. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And thank you to everyone for all of the fantastic questions today. There are a couple of questions left. And if you have any more, if you're watching this recording on replay, please take them to the Trailblazer community where we can get those questions answered for you and continue the discussion. And on that note, I have just one more thing to share with you today. And that is that if you want to learn more about this release's new features, please go to sforce.co/learn more. And you'll have access to all of the blog posts that we've published this week that deep dive into all of these specific topics for this release. Now, in that link, you'll be able to complete a trail mix. And if you do it before the 31st of July, you'll be entered into a raffle to win a certification voucher. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today. Like I said, we will continue responding to the remaining questions on Twitter and in the Trailblazer community. Thank you and have a great rest of your day.